Aloha, YouStormer. As you can see, today we are having a look at Australia to start off with in today's Global Storm Outlook. And that's because there has been a whole bunch of stuff going on meteorologically. You can see some of it in this image, but I'm going to zoom in to take a closer look at what's been going on. So here is a zoomed in, slightly closer look at Australia, and sorry it's a bit jumpy, my computer has pretty poor internet at times. Anyway, over here is Cyclone Oma, or it's a tropical storm at the moment, but this is a very large tropical storm, and what it's going to do seems to be quite uncertain, and so I'm going to come back to that later. But let's get back over to Australia. You can see dust moving off here. I'll put a D there. And this over here is a long cold front that has been progressing northwards up the country. And it's really yesterday, and I'll come back to yesterday, that it was a really quite severe event in terms of fires. In terms of bushfires, you can see smoke here and here, and also up here in Queensland. So in New South Wales and Queensland, smoke. The other thing to notice is that there is a region here this was associated with the Queensland floods, and this is actually a huge flood event, a huge area that was under relatively shallow water, I think, in most places, but over a huge area, and it actually changed the look of Australia. So there we have it. And if you notice today, there is this plume of dust coming off Australia, and some of it is smoke, and that is moving up, and it looks like it's reaching and has reached the South Island of New Zealand and moving into the North Island of New Zealand tomorrow. I just wanted to quickly show this view of these thunderstorms in Queensland. There's Fraser Island, and you can see the shadow from the setting sun off these thunderstorms on the ground, and then there's smoke here from some of the bushfires. Stepping back to yesterday, this is a view from NASA's Terra Modis satellite, and you can see this huge plume of dust that is sucked up by the cold front when it was a little further to the south. The other thing is the smoke from the fires is also visible, and those are labeled there. So you can see the dust has come off all the way from the interior there. And actually this is also smoke out here that came off Australia earlier. And if we put that in motion, this is the Himawari 8 satellite loop, which I saved from yesterday, and you can see the dust progressing up the country. And the other thing that's quite interesting to note is if you watch the bushfires, you'll see them pick up as the winds pick up, and also as the winds change direction associated with the front. The front has a shift in winds associated with it, so it's more like this to start off with, and then it goes more westerly after the front or during and after the front passage. So you see that shift in direction there. And the other thing is that as the sun sets, you'll see the smoke turning a little bit white, particularly on this fire, and that is because it's turning into a pyrocumulonimbus cloud, I believe, at that time. Zooming in even further, we're looking at these number of fires and you'll see the shift in direction. Well, this is actually around after the shift in direction, but I'm going to pause it because at sunset around there, no, okay, never mind, I'll just go back to there. You can just make out some shadows on the smoke, and that is indicating that this bit is higher up than this bit, and so these are somewhat deeper clouds, probably pyrocumulonimbus possibly. The other thing in this loop is these beautiful wave clouds that form as the cold front progresses up the coast. Very nice. They seem to happen every now and again along the Australian east coast as these fronts morph into different forms. One of those fires that was blowing up yesterday and continues into today is the one near Tinga, which is a place in New South Wales, and you can see that there has been a number of damage to buildings. Some have been destroyed, but hopefully no casualty, no injuries, although we shall see as things progress. So let's move on to look at what might be coming along in the future. So we have Cyclone Oma here, and the GFS, this is the Global Forecasting System model, which is showing the rainfall or precipitation. It's snow where it's cold enough, so up in Asia and Canada in the northern areas, since it's northern hemisphere winter. And there's actually another tropical cyclone which is being shown in the northern hemisphere, kind of mirroring the one in the southern hemisphere, mirroring Omar. Now there's a lot of disagreement. I'll tell you in advance before we look at it that there's a lot of disagreement amongst the models, and it's not clear whether these are both going to form, but I will say that it is interesting that you get these twin cyclones either side of the equator, because that is often associated with a westerly or anomalously west flow in this region, which could be a trigger for a wave in the ocean thermocline. And well, there is currently a slightly above normal risk of El Nino, and there have also been floods in Arica, in a normally dry area of northern Chile. So just curious about what are the possibilities for El Nino as the year progresses. But let's stick with the near term and look at Cyclone Omar. Okay, I'm going to start with one of the scarier models, which is the GFS, and Cyclone Omar is here, and this is New Caledonia down here. So I'm going to progress forward, and if you look at the pressures, you'll see at 9:41 and dropping around, this is Sunday, drops to 9:30 and then becomes stronger and stronger, and then sort of levels out and weakens a little bit. But look where it's going. It is very close to Queensland, southern Queensland, and then progressing. It actually, in this model, makes landfall at the border between Queensland and New South Wales. But we'll see that this is, I think, first of all, way too far into the future, as there's huge uncertainty and massive disagreement in the models. So I'm going to check another model now. So to compare with the GFS, we have the European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecast model, and this is it. So what does it show? I honestly can't tell you, I haven't looked at it, but let's move it forward. There is Omar, very clear, distinct, powerful storm. It's wobbling around, and that's the thing, it's in a very sort of uncertain steering area, which is why it's so uncertain. And it progresses and then seems to clip New Caledonia, and then it's heading off, and then it's turning around. And you can see in this case it doesn't reach Australia at all. It completely misses. It turns, recurves, and actually heads off towards the North Island of New Zealand. So I think in the near term we're looking at a more local threat to New Caledonia and deal with what happens to it later, at a later time. But I'm going to look at one more model, which is the Access Bureau Meteorology model. So here is excuse me, here is the Access model, and it has Omar as a wobbling system, not really going anywhere fast, hanging around and then jumping as it changes resolution and heading into New Caledonia. In this scenario, and perhaps the European, maybe all of them, but they are indicating a lot of rain for New Caledonia, amongst other problems. So based on all that and many other models and many other expert opinions and whatnot, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has this as their official track of Omar. So it is taking that route and going past the north of New Caledonia, and then beyond that, where it goes, we don't know. But they mention in their discussion that it's extremely, well, very uncertain in the medium range, and that's probably because it's just such a very slow moving storm. So the other question is, what about that storm that looked like it was forming to the north of the equator in the West Pacific, up here? It appears that the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has no indication of anything in particular, although maybe this bunch of cloud is something. But so we're going to have to jump and rely on the models to have a look at this one. Alright, let's start with our old friend, the GFS, and the area of cloud just circled in the previous satellite image is associated with this broad area of low pressure down here near the equator. And that is our system that the GFS wants to blow up into a tropical storm or maybe even a typhoon. So let's move forward here. See, as we've already seen, the GFS is spinning this thing up. Looks by February 19th it's getting going quite close to the equator. It starts off, but anyway, it gets going at looks close to approaching 10 north, and it makes it quite a strong system, as the GFS likes to do, and then progresses it north and off. So the GFS is making a typhoon here, no question. With those pressures, that is a typhoon. And we can compare now with the ECMWF. So here is the ECMWF model again, and we've got the low pressure system down here that is being initialized by the model, and as we progress forward it actually also spins up a tropical cyclone. It's in a different, slightly different location where it spins it up maybe a bit later. The ECMWF here does not go as far into the future, but it's definitely producing something there. So this is going to be interesting to watch, but it is quite a long way off, about a week away before the ECMWF starts to spin it out. But the fact that two are spinning it up, one to watch. So I think I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick, but if Cyclone Oma turns into something, gets much stronger, I will probably do another update later in the week or into next week. It's going to be moving very slowly. The other thing, just to finish up, is Hawaii is having a fairly unsettled period, looks like, and they've had this big storm that brought enormous surf and caused damage, strong winds. So I'm just going to look at a few satellite images to finish up. This is the view of Hawaii. Down in the bottom here is Hawaii, you see the islands, and this was February 8th. Moving forward, you can see the storm system up here developing very dramatically, hook cloud, and then it suddenly jumps down over the next day. Well, it progresses down and it got quite close to Hawaii, bringing very large waves, but also cold temperatures aloft. And if we progress the next day, you might just make out a small dot on Mauna Kea, and that is actually snow, and there's another area of snow on Haleakala, on Maui, a little bit on Mauna Kea, and actually it's better viewed a little bit earlier by the Terra Modis there. So you can see it's a bit more extensive on Mauna Kea. But the big news was Haleakala, where it apparently snowed at 6,200 feet at its lowest, or somewhat, and that is extremely low, and actually I have heard that some people think it might be a record, I'm not sure. So that was quite an extraordinary event. And so to finish off, why don't I show you some pictures of Haleakala here, which are taken off Twitter. You can just search on Twitter for Haleakala snow and you get some images. But on these images, actually, the snow line is certainly very low. It does snow on Haleakala every now and again. It's not unheard of, but it's the fact that it got so low which is so exceptional, I think. Alright, see you next time.